Hey darlings. The morning was cloudy, gloomy, and very unlucky for Denis. As they say, I got up on my left foot. I managed to spill coffee on my shirt, and for a long time I could not find an important document in my briefcase, as if it had been lost somewhere on purpose. Plus, this stupid cough has kept me from sleeping for 2 weeks and I feel kind of weak. The man spat on his breakfast and had no appetite at all. He was already late. Luckily, the apartment keys fell behind the dresser, and it took him a long time to get them out, swearing. And then sleepy Larissa appeared at the door. She wore seductive short pajamas. Even the sleepy woman looked beautiful. She stretched, straightened her unruly red curls with her hand, and capriciously pouted her charming full lips. And who would run away from home without kissing their girlfriend? And someone else was running around the house like an elephant and woke her up. Denis looked at his beloved wife, hugged her tenderly, and kissed her on the cheek. Forgive me, sunshine. Today is not my day. Everything is upside down. I'm going to run. I'm very late and there are important negotiations today. Go, my doll. Sleep a little more. Larissa blew him a kiss and went to lie down on the bed. She didn't need to run anywhere. A downpour fell on the street. The wind howled and ripped the last leaves from the trees. The man shivered and got into the car, but it wouldn't start. The battery was dead. Denis hit the steering wheel angrily and muttered, "Well, I wanted to change the battery, but I kept putting it off until the last minute. There wasn't time. Shoemaker without shoes. So what should we do now? And I'm so late. You will have to call a taxi." Denis lived outside the city and, in this bad weather, taxis were in high demand. So the taxi manager replied monotonously, "Wait, all the cars are leaving. We'll call you back." Denis's nervousness reached its climax and he almost shouted, "Yes, this is some kind of total bad luck. Where did I sin so much?" The man ran to the stop and finally the bus arrived. He hasn't used public transport for many years, but what can you do? Force majeure. It was unusual for Denis. There were different people. There was fuss and noise. He squeezed into the back seat, put on the hood of his jacket and closed his eyes. He even managed to doze off, but was woken up by a scandal in the lounge. A pretty, blonde-haired girl, modestly dressed, entered the bus, wet and shivering. The driver demanded to pay the fare, and the poor guy looked at the hole in his pocket in surprise and stammered, "Sir, I dropped the money and didn't notice. Now wait, I'm going to look at the jeans. It was like this." The girl shook out all her pockets empty. She blushed and turned pale. It was clear that she was ashamed and very embarrassed, but the driver deliberately pressed and loudly scolded the passenger. "I do not know anything. Pay the ticket or get off at the next stop. You young people love to ride like a hare, and you also create comedy here." The girl nodded and was ready to fall to the ground, and Denis could not stand it. It seemed to him that this whole scandal had been sucked out of nowhere. Well, why shout so much over these trifles? The man approached the driver and took out a card. "Let me pay for this, throw a punch." The driver shrugged her shoulders, saying, "Whatever you want." She issued a ticket and drove away. The girl exhaled and smiled at Denis. "Phew, thank you. You just helped me. Don't think I don't ride for free." The truth dropped the money. What a mess. "My name is Marina." Denis smiled back and also introduced himself, inviting the girl to sit next to him. The girl suddenly said, "You know what? Let me tell my fortune as a sign of gratitude. I can do it. My grandmother taught me. There is still a long way to go." "Ah, come on. I don't believe it all. All these fortune tellers, mediums, and other charlatans just attract money from gullible people and fill their heads with all sorts of nonsense. And somehow you don't look like a fortune teller. A very strange way to meet someone." Marina became serious. "You shouldn't be doing this. I'm not trying to please you at all. You're not my type. But I really know how to guess. My grandmother once taught me. The whole village went to her for advice." I just wanted to say thank you, but if it's so unpleasant for you, I won't insist. She turned to the window and remained silent, thinking about something else. There was an awkward pause. Denis realized that he had gone too far and peacefully stretched out his hand to the girl. Okay, say your luck if you want, I don't mind. It's even interesting what you can see by looking at your palm. Marina took his hand, concentrated and closed her eyes. Denis felt a pleasant warmth in his hand. And suddenly the fortune teller was hit by an electric shock. The girl shuddered and jumped away. And then she did such a thing that Denis was surprised. Marina literally fell on the man and abruptly ripped the medallion from his neck and screamed, "You can't use it. Never put it on again. Otherwise you will die, listen. Also, don't go to the meeting today. A terrible tragedy will happen there. You will suffer too if you were there. Death is on your heels. Be careful." The few passengers and the driver looked at them with wide eyes and crossed themselves. Some gasped, "Not normal." "Yes, she is sick for sure. Throw yourself at people." Denis was very indignant. He snatched the medallion from her hands and shouted, "Then do good deeds. I helped you. What are you doing? Absurd. What does my amulet have to do with this? This is a talisman called Valkyrie. My wife gave it to me. She brought it from her trip. He is very beautiful. He also has a symbol of strength, a bracelet. On the contrary, it gives me confidence and helps me in business. Read. What does the meeting have to do with it? Laugh alone. A normal meal with partners in a restaurant and nothing more. What could happen there? I didn't think you were such a swindler." Such a performance was performed for the public. But Marina didn't seem to hear anyone. She leaned against the back of the seat, breathing heavily, as if she had run a marathon and repeated as if it were routine. Visions don't lie, and soon you will see everything for yourself. Don't go anywhere today. I beg you. Denis didn't continue the unpleasant conversation and got off at the nearest stop without ever getting to the right one, and Marina's words still wouldn't leave his head. His indignation knew no bounds. Such a nice girl turned out to be a charlatan. He was already late for everything and was angry, and then this fortune teller said a bunch of nasty things. The man walked for another 20 minutes, finally began to approach the restaurant where his meeting with his partners was supposed to take place and saw emergency vehicles and 2 police teams near the entrance. There was also a crowd of passers-by and onlookers. Denis was surprised and began to ask what people were doing. They told him that a young man with a gun, who was fighting with one of the guests, ran into the building and opened fire on people. He was probably drunk, it's still unclear. Many injured and several dead. His legs gave way on their own and Denis sat on the curb, holding his head in his hands. He couldn't believe it. The fortune teller's words turned out to be prophetic. She wasn't lying. If he had arrived at the right time, he could have been seriously hurt. But he didn't believe Marina for a second, considering her crazy. Turns out she just saved him. The man sat for a while longer, recovering his senses, got up, shook himself, and returned home. The wife clearly didn't expect to see him so soon. She was about to go out somewhere. She was dressed very provocatively. An ultra-short dress and over-the-knee boots, bright makeup, and an unusually sweet perfume. Denis had never seen his wife like this. He almost shouted, "Larissa, where are you going like this? Sorry, but you look like a courtesan. How crazy is that?" The woman was clearly confused at first, walking down the hallway, but quickly composed herself and began babbling. "Why did you arrive so early? Don't you have your own things to do?" And here I was getting ready to go shopping with my friend. We wanted to sit in a cafe and chat. We hadn't seen each other for so long. You don't care, do you? Denis frowned. I'm not against your women's meetings, but only if you change your clothes. Well, what kind of thing is this? You have a lot of normal things. What's wrong with you, Larissa? I don't recognize you. The woman decided not to anger her husband. She was always a cunning fox, So she made concessions and put on a cream suit, wiped off her poisonous red lipstick, smiled and kissed Denis on the cheek. Good now? That's it, I ran. Inna is waiting. The wife left and Denis sat on a kitchen chair and thought. It's strange. In front of him, Larissa always said that she hated vulgarity, but what now? He had never come home from work so early, and in fact, he didn't know exactly how his wife spent her day. And then he remembered the amulet in his jacket pocket, pulled it out and began to examine it carefully, turning it over from all sides. And only now he realized that the medallion was hollow and there was something inside. The man's hands were shaking. He brought scissors and with great difficulty managed to put on the hooks and finally open the decoration. What fell from there was something that looked like crumpled gray cotton. Here is Valkyrie. What a talisman. What does all this mean? The man decided to find out everything himself, and tomorrow he would take the medallion to the laboratory and hand it over for research. Denis wondered if he knew his wife so well. He began to examine his life and remember. Denis grew up in a good, decent family. My mother is an accountant. My father is a car mechanic by profession. He had golden hands. They lived in abundance. Peace always reigned in the house. The mother knew how to go around corners and take care of the home. He inherited his father's business. He opened his own car service a long time ago. At first, it was just a garage and a few hard workers, but over the years the man was able to develop, and now very expensive cars were brought to him for repairs. There were 10 people in the team, all professionals in their field. From an early age, Denis himself was there all the time, helping and being able to rebuild any engine with his own hands, if necessary. The father recently retired completely and handed the reins over to his son. Denis loved his work, treated it responsibly, valued specialists, and did not offend them with money, and gave bonuses for good work. But Denis's personal life was not going well at first. He himself was not very sociable. I couldn't easily meet the girl I liked. The parents tried to decide their son's fate themselves. The mother often brought, supposedly by chance, some of her friends, exceptionally decent and modest girls, to visit her daughters, but all in vain. The guy looked longingly at those gray mice and didn't like them. Communication somehow didn't go well. Well, how can you love a girl who, for example, is twice as fat as you or wears ridiculous glasses that disfigure her so much? It was unacceptable to him then. He met Larissa by chance, at a friend's birthday party. The girl was so smart and lively that she danced wildly on the dance floor and men spun around her. Larissa looked stunning. In a tight-fitting red dress, repeating all the curves and charms of an impeccable figure, a shock of red curls and some demonically attractive and defiant green eyes, from which it was impossible to tear herself away. Denis was flattered that such a beauty had chosen him as her gentleman. She welcomed him herself, laughed merrily and told jokes. It was so easy and interesting to be with her. Before he knew it, they were drinking a hot cocktail and laughing, and then they went to his house together. After a passionate and hot night, the couple started dating. Denis fell madly in love. He literally could not part with his bride. He idolized her. Soon they had a magnificent wedding and Laura became his legal wife. Although his friends for some reason immediately disliked Larissa, considering her calculating and cunning, the man did not listen to anyone, flew home in the arms of his beloved. Over time, Laura herself decided to change her clothing style. Now she only bought items from expensive brands and focused on elegance rather than flashy style. Her own appearance was bright, and the soft pastel colors only revealed her better. Denis really liked his wife's new image. He even said every night before going to bed that he loved her more than anything in the world. Before her marriage, Laura worked as a cashier in a supermarket. She was raised by her grandmother in the village, but she also died and there were no other relatives. Well, after the wedding, Denis himself invited her to become a housewife. Your income allowed it, so why not spoil your wife? Why be bent over for 12 hours and not get enough sleep? He regularly gave her flowers and made gifts, and did not spare his beloved. And 6 months ago he decided to surprise his Larachka, gave her a birthday trip abroad. He himself could not go because of work. Larissa returned happy, in bloom, and brought this medallion as a gift to her husband. Denis really liked him, as he had been collecting various antiques, vases, candlesticks, cigarette cases, and coins for a long time. The man accepted the gift with joy. The medallion was very unusual. This is a complex geometric composition. In the center, there is an interesting symbol framed by a solar circle. Lara placed the amulet around his neck and whispered, "Must be used without taking off. Then you will become strong and successful, and competitors will not be able to defeat you." After all, the Valkyrie has been used by warriors since ancient times for good luck. The man was happy and constantly boasted about the amulet to his friends. He was pleased that his wife approached the choice of a gift with such scrupulousness. It turns out that in the last 3 months something incomprehensible began to happen to Denis. His strength seemed to be giving out, he was tormented by a severe cough, and his head began to ache. Frequently, he attributed it all to tiredness and workload and postponed his visit to the doctor. But now, after the fortune teller's words, he began to wonder if his health really started to deteriorate precisely after he started wearing this amulet. But before he had not connected these events with each other. And he was also very worried because Lara didn't want children. She always joked that it was too early, she needed to live for herself. But Denis, on the contrary, really wanted a child. He had already earned money for himself. He wanted warmth and comfort, to take care of the baby and hear the word father. He tried to visit Larissa more often, in families where there were already children, in the hope that she would also want to become a mother. Just yesterday Denis was absolutely sure that he had a strong family and a loving wife. But this mysterious story with the pendant sowed doubts in his soul. The next day, Denis sent the medallion for examination to an independent laboratory and, while waiting for the results, he realized that its condition had actually improved. He began to eat with appetite. His head stopped hurting and his coughing lessened. But when the man got the result, he was stunned. Inside the amulet, a small piece of rag was treated with a rare, odorless poison of natural origin, which killed Denis slowly, penetrating the skin and when inhaled into the body. The laboratory staff advised him to contact the police and get tested at a hospital. Denis reread the results of the study hundreds of times and thought, did Larissa want to intentionally harass me, or did she not know anything about the poison? Maybe I liked the amulet, so I bought it. We seem to live in perfect harmony. Why would she kill me? At first Denis wanted to talk to his wife and ask him directly about it, but he immediately dismissed the idea. Lara would probably say she didn't know anything, throw a tantrum and cry. There was also nothing to go to the police with yet. The wife will get away with it anyway. You never know. She bought it as a gift and had no idea that the little thing was a surprise and quite dangerous. And then Denis decided not to tell anyone anything for now, but to keep an eye on his wife. Once at work, he solved all the problems early in the morning and immediately changed his clothes in the office. Sweater and cap over his eyes, glasses. He didn't recognize himself in the reflection. He again drove to his house and kept watch. I was hoping Lara would go somewhere. She had her own car, also a gift from her husband. And so, on the third day of surveillance, Denis waited. Larissa left the house again with the same defiant appearance. The short dress barely covered her legs. She got into the car and drove away, with Denis behind her. He asked the employee for the car so that Lara wouldn't suspect anything. The husband expected his wife to go to the gym or just go for a walk. He still wanted to believe that Lara still loved him and was faithful, and was up to no good. The woman parked near the hotel and went in, but it took a long time to get out. Denis went after her. He convinced the administrator to tell him which room Lara went to, even though he had to fork out some money. His heart was about to jump out of his chest. He tried the bedroom door. It was locked. Then he resorted to a trick, knocked and said through the palm of his hand, "Your champagne. Open, please." He heard a man grumble and Laura laugh. "I don't think I asked today. Always punctual. I am arriving." The door opened and Denis saw the same photo. Larissa is on a huge bed in just her panties, and her lover is in lingerie, with just a towel around his waist. The bed was unmade. The bright lipstick on my wife's lips was smudged. Everything immediately became clear. Denis even took his breath away with what he saw. He knew his wife's lover Sergei once worked with him, but was caught stealing and was expelled under the article. And Laura left him for this swindler and loser? Blood rushed to his temples. Denis could no longer contain himself. He immediately hit her lover's chin, and he fell back. Larissa screamed and covered her face with her hands. There was nothing to cover her. Denis shouted so loudly that the veins on his neck swelled. "Ah, you are rubbish. I blew dust particles off you, and you betrayed me at this time? I'm going to throw all your things away today. And so that your feet are no longer at home. Live with Kopylov now, since you feel so cute together. Let him provide it for you. Now I'm sure you gave me a medallion with poison on purpose. What? Did you wait with your lover until I died? You couldn't wait to get all my property?" Larissa dressed in a hurry. "Forgive me, dear. I beg you. I did not want. It only happened once. Sergei himself seduced me. He is a terrible person and forced me. I only love you." The husband cried out in their hearts. "You don't need to lie or dodge. I'll never trust you again. It's disgusting." Denis spat at his feet, kicked his knocked-out opponent, and jumped out of the hotel as if he had been scalded. How painful it was for him. How bad and offensive. He was indignant. For what? Why did Larissa, whom he loved so much, act so vilely? What was she missing? Where did this fortune teller come from? Until I met her, everything in my life was great. And now troubles rain down one after another. Why do I need this terrible truth? How can you trust women after that? After her husband left, Larissa ran to her lover, threw water on him, and rubbed his face. He finally came to his senses and rubbed his bruised jaw, a huge bruise spreading across his cheek. The woman lamented, "Sarazenka, dear, how are you doing? Really hurts? What will happen now? I don't know how Denis located me. He is always working at this time. All is lost. Our plan has failed. Plus, he knows everything about the poison locket. I don't understand how he guessed." The man was angry. His head was buzzing. Denis pushed him hard. He pushed Larissa away like an annoying fly and began to blame her for everything. "It's all because of you, you brainless chicken. After all, everything was going according to plan. Just a little more and he would have died, and I would have been happy. What now? Tell me, what's the use of you? All you can do is blink your eyes and spread your legs." Larissa did not expect such a reaction. She wanted Seryoza to console her, to feel sorry for her, and she made excuses. "Well, why are you doing this? I tried, and I tried my best to please Denis, even though I don't love him at all. Well, to hell with him. Let's get a divorce, okay? You are simply obsessed with the idea of revenge. Can it be enough? I love you more than life. Why can't we just be together? Live happily? I would give birth to a baby for you." Sergei dressed hastily and did not listen to Larissa. He understood that he needed to leave now, and quickly, and the fate of his lover did not worry him at all. Larissa had been running after him since school, hanging around his neck, not letting him pass, so he decided to take advantage. But now that the deal fell through, he had no intention of living with her. He considered her a beautiful doll, without a brain, nothing more, and marrying her, much less raising children, was not part of his plans. He only cared about money. With him he could fuck any beauty. Then he hissed angrily, "You are crazy? What other children? You made this mess yourself. You got caught like an idiot. So you can sort it out yourself. And I'm leaving. You need to be quiet. And when everything calms down, I will find you myself." Larissa cried and begged. "But how can this be, Serioza? I did all this for you. And now you want to leave me, right? Where will I go? Denis won't let you in. He doesn't have his own house. You said you love me too. I believed you." The man understood that she was about to become hysterical, but that was not enough. He needed to calm and deceive his lover. He hugged her, began to whisper and caress her passionately. He knew that this had an irresistible effect on her, that she would immediately swim and agree to everything. And so it happened. Larissa's eyes immediately became moist. She could not control herself and immediately responded to the caresses. Sergei was for her like a drug, without which she could not live. He told her she should sue and get as much out of Denis as possible, gave her some money to rent a house, called a taxi and left. Larissa blindly believed, as before, in Sergei and could not refuse. Denis soon divorced. The trial was very difficult. The man regretted 100 times over not having listened to his father when he got married and not having signed the marriage contract. The cunning Larissa tried to take away most of her property. She also threw mud at him and shouted into the phone, "Yes, Sokolov, I never loved you. Not for a minute. Sergei is my first love. We've been together since school. I am ready to give my life for him. I dreamed so much that you would die and Serioza would take your place in the car service. I only married you because Serioza asked me to. He wanted to get revenge on you in any way, and I helped him with that. It's with him that I'm flying to seventh heaven, but with you I was just pretending, and I rightfully own half of what we acquired in marriage. And this is a car, a house by the sea and jewelry." Denis was surprised by his ex-wife's audacity and responded sharply, "Well, no, I'll lay you down with your bones, but you'll leave with your bottom bare, just like you came. You're a monster, Larissa, and I'm an idiot for wasting 3 years of my life with you." Denis hired an experienced lawyer, had to spend a lot of money, and found witnesses who watched the entire scene of his unfaithful wife's exposure in the hotel and testified. It was possible to prove that Larissa never worked anywhere for a day while she was married and, therefore, could not complain about anything. The story of the poisonous medallion was also publicized. The ex-husband won the case, and the greedy woman was left with nothing. Denis's parents exhaled. They felt sorry for their son, and the mother lamented, "Son, don't worry, it's a good thing that Snake is gone. We warned you that Larissa was a little thing, but you didn't believe it. You didn't listen to anyone. And find the girl who helped you discover the truth. You need to thank her. After all, she just saved you." At the beginning, it was very difficult for Denis. He literally spent days and nights in an auto repair shop. He couldn't enter an empty house. He felt like a complete idiot, a cuckold. It seemed like everyone knew that and laughed behind his back. How could he be so wrong? It was as if they were wearing rose-colored glasses. But when he introduced Larissa to his parents for the first time, his mother warned him, "Ah, son, well, you chose your bride. She didn't even bother to help me in the kitchen. She just looked in the mirror and admired herself. His gaze is cold and calculating. She doesn't love you. Maybe you won't rush into marriage? Take a closer look." Denis even got angry and scolded his mother. "Mom, I think you exaggerated the colors. Larissa is charming. I love her very much and she loves me. I've never felt as good with anyone as I did with her. How can you not understand? You can't order your heart. We'll get married anyway and be happy, you'll see." Friends also said in one voice, "Denis, open your eyes. You're walking into a rope. Your Larissa's eyes shine in the eyes of other men, and you can see from her that she is a fox." But he stubbornly resisted and, defying everyone, held a magnificent wedding. It seemed to Denis that they were happy, that Larissa was also happy with him, but it turns out that she lied to him every day, every minute. These thoughts made me feel even worse. He really wanted to get drunk and forget about himself, so that the pain would subside at least a little, but he endured it. He understood that this was not an option, and work didn't allow me to become completely soft. People came to him all day with problems that needed to be resolved literally on the spot. When the passion subsided a little, Denis decided to really find Marina. He often remembered her. She could not get out of his mind. Well, what a strong natural gift she has, a rare case. But he didn't believe her and was also very rude. But he didn't know anything about her. Who is she? Where he lives? How to look for this? Denis had no choice but to take the same bus where they met and just follow the route, hoping that Marina would return there. So a week passed, but the girl still met Denis. He became completely desperate and decided that this was it. Today he would go for the last time. If he didn't see her again, then it wasn't destiny for them to meet. And a miracle happened. Marina entered the room again. This time she paid and sat down. How beautiful she was. Her beauty was not at all flashy, quite natural. Even without makeup, the girl looked fresh and attractive. Long blonde curls were tied into a ponytail at the back of her head and spread almost to her lower back. Denis was so happy and immediately ran to her. "Hello, Marina. I'm looking for you. I've been walking the route for a week now and I'm lucky we met you. Thank you very much. You literally saved my life, twice. Everything you said then came true. I'm sorry I didn't believe you right away and cursed you. Can I invite you for a visit? My parents would really like to meet you." The girl was surprised, blushed at such pleasant words and replied, "I'm glad I helped. I told you. Visions can't be deceiving. They seem like a flash. I see a second photo in front of me. How this happens, of God or the evil one, I don't know either. The gift was passed down to me by my grandmother. I grew up with her in the village. I would love to go visit you, but I can't. I have a small son. He is sick. While I'm away, his neighbor, Aunt Pollia, takes care of him. But I still try not to be away for too long. So you better come to us. I'll write down the address now." And a phone. Denis was serious and surprised. "That's how it is. Why can't you help yourself? Well, see your future? Avoid misfortunes and problems?" The fortune teller smiled bitterly. "It's not over. You understand. I'm an ordinary person. The marriage was unsuccessful. The divorce was difficult, and now Alyosha is in trouble. Visions do not come as ordered and I cannot see my future. Unfortunately." Denis did not stay behind and asked everything. "What about your son?" "I'm not asking out of curiosity. What can I do to help the baby?" Marina honestly told it like it is. "Alyosha has a congenital intestinal anomaly. Everything is very serious. But I didn't realize it right away. My son always had abdominal pain. He didn't gain weight well. Doctors examined him from one side to the other. Medications were prescribed, but there was no significant relief. And in the end, after a complete and thorough examination, here in the capital, we received this diagnosis. An operation is required to completely get rid of this disease. My son doesn't go to kindergarten. I prepare everything in puree to make his digestion easier. According to the policy, such complex operations are not carried out. We queue according to a quota, but time is passing. I don't know when we will wait. In fact, before my son was born, I worked as an accountant. But when Alyosha fell ill, I was forced to pay. The salary was a pittance. Yes, and my son needs care. Then I remembered my gift, which I got from my grandmother. I posted an ad on the internet. I accepted it directly at home. It's enough to live on. I'm slowly saving it for my son's surgery. I really want him to be healthy, to be able to eat like everyone else, to enjoy life. I don't consider myself a fraudster because I don't lie to people, but I just say what I see." Denis nodded. sympathized and said quietly, "Can I visit you tomorrow then? I won't be long, I promise. I really want to meet your son. I love children, but my ex-wife categorically didn't want them. And come on, otherwise it's somehow inconvenient." Marina was delighted. "Okay, Denis, come, of course. Tomorrow I stay at home all day. I have 4 clients and that's it. You'll wait. Goodbye." On the way home, Denis stopped by to visit his parents, as he didn't want to be alone on his day off. At dinner, he talked about his meeting with Marina and his misfortune. Mom lamented, "A poor girl. The hardest thing is when a child is sick, your heart bleeds, especially if you understand that you are unable to help. Check on them, son. Discover everything, support, and don't think about Larissa. Forget about her as a nightmare, no matter how difficult it is. Believe me, destiny itself will punish you. This always happens in life. But you need to move on with your life. Not everyone is such a bitch. You will meet a good and decent girl on your way." Denis bought the baby gouache paints, an album and funny coloring books, and went to visit him. And on the table there will be a chocolate cake and a charming bouquet of violets for Marina. The girl was very happy, started chirping, and led Denis to the kitchen. There, sitting at the table, was a sad boy, thin as a stalk. Alyosha languidly picked up the plate with a spoon. He saw Denis and perked up, waving to him friendly. And he turned to Marina. "Mom, who is this uncle? Wow, what beautiful flowers. And what a cake. It's a shame I can't. Can I eat this? Oh, please. Can I have at least a little piece of cake?" The girl introduced the guest. "Meet Alyosha. This is Uncle Denis, my good friend. He came to visit you and me. You need to eat at least a little. You are already glowing." The child whimpered and began to be capricious, kicking his leg and refusing to swallow even a spoonful. The man sat next to him. "Listen, Alyosha, do you like to draw? I brought you something here. And if you like it, look here." The boy looked at the set of drawings. His eyes immediately lit up. "Thanks, uncle. How did you know I draw well? I have old paints, watercolors, but they don't exist. What kind of brushes?" Denis continued, "I love drawing myself, but it's boring being alone and I don't have any friends. Shall we draw together? Let's eat first, and I will help you. Come on, Mom. Give me a big spoon too. I will overtake Alyosha immediately and be the first to escape." The boy forgot his whims. The spirit of competition woke up in him, and he exclaimed, "We bet I'll finish eating first and start drawing. Mom, count to 10. Which of us will eat faster? Just give Uncle Denis the same treatment as me, otherwise it won't be fair." Marina counted out loud and cheered for her son, and he ate the entire plate as a joke. Well, Denis didn't stay behind, but, of course, he gave in and allowed the boy to win the argument. The satisfied boy poured some water into a glass and ran to his room to spread the paints, and Marina smiled. "Thanks. You became famous for convincing Leshka to eat. I usually don't have the courage to feed him. He wants, like every child, sweets, soda, and snacks, but he can't." Denis said sincerely, "Good boy, Smart. I'll draw with him, if you don't mind. I haven't talked to children for a long time. It's so interesting." Time passed. Denis and Alyosha together drew a beautiful picture, a fire truck with a firefighter, and painted everything. The boy turned out to be sociable and extroverted. Apparently, friends rarely came to see him, and he was very happy with the attention and communication. Share your successes? You know, my mother took my drawings to a competition in kindergarten, and I took second place there, although I didn't go there. I wish I could, but I don't like the food there, and I have to take drops and stomach pills every hour. And if you don't drink them, it hurts and twists and makes you feel really bad. But my mother says that soon the good doctor will cure me and I will be like all children. I believe her. Mom never lies. She only cries a lot at night, thinking I can't hear, but I know everything. And our neighbor, Uncle Fedia, Sometimes allows me to ride Stepka's bike. I'm already doing a little. Mom just swears. The bike is for adults. She's afraid I'll fall and break my leg. Do you have children? No, Alyosha, unfortunately not. But I would very much like to be your friend. Can I come visit you? I haven't rested like this for a long time. I need a partner to paint pictures. The boy was happy. Of course, come. I'll wait, you're fine. And thanks for the gifts. It was getting dark outside and Denis was getting ready to go home. Marina looked at him gratefully. Thank you, Denis, for spending time with your son. He is very happy with any communication. You come anytime. We will be happy. So Denis and Marina became close friends. He began to visit them often and play with Alyosha. And he was determined to help this wonderful baby get healthy. So, little by little, I collected all the information about his diagnosis, a rare genetic disease, the cost of treatment, and I was not afraid to withdraw such an amount from his company's accounts, even though it was very risky. But what was at stake was the child's health. But what about the money? Dust. It will still work. I resolved all the organizational issues and reached an agreement with the doctor, and only then did I solemnly announce, during a visit to Marina, I have good news. Lisha is being taken for surgery, and you can go to sleep tomorrow. So gather your child and don't worry about anything. The clinic is good. I talked to the doctor. The prognosis is good. They promised that after the operation, Lisha will live like everyone else and will forget about intestinal problems. And he will eat whatever he wants. That is great. Marina gasped and Leshka clapped. Alive. Mommy, will my good uncle cure me? Will I be able to eat everything like normal children? And will I go to kindergarten? Marina couldn't believe it. Wait, but how? The quota line hadn't arrived yet, I discovered. Or did you pay for everything out of your own pocket? This is a large amount. I don't know when I'll be able to give you everything, even if it's in installments and in parts. I have about a third of the money. I will give it to you today, and the rest on the sly. God, I can't believe it. Denis, you are like a good wizard. Tell me, why are you helping us? We are complete strangers, essentially. The man took her hand and answered honestly. Marina, we met in such a strange and unusual way. You told me that on the bus that time. I decided you were crazy, really. But when everything came true, and thanks to you I was saved twice, I began to think of you in a completely different way. Then I got divorced. My wife cheated on me so painfully, and again, if it weren't for you, I would never have known about it. So I would have lived lying until today, or I wouldn't have lived at all. From that day on, I couldn't live a day without thinking about you, you know? I do not know why. Maybe you bewitched me then? And when I met Lyoshik, I definitely realized that I wanted to be next to him. I help sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, and you don't need to give me money. They will still be useful. The doctor warned that the operation was complicated and that the recovery would be long. The main thing is that the baby endures everything and gets better. And I will always be there, and in what capacity it is up to you to decide. But know that I really like you. And truth. The girl squeezed his hand in response, and tears glistened in her eyes. She said softly, Thank you very much for your son. I am in your debt. We'll talk about the rest later. It's all so unexpected that I need to think about it. And now all I can think about is Lyoshka's health. The boy underwent successful surgery, but the recovery period was not easy. The boy received antibiotics. He did not tolerate it well. The bandages hurt, and during this period he could eat almost nothing and maintained a strict diet. But the boy was a real fighter. He took everything firmly. He didn't have any hysteria. He held on and waited until he was finally discharged. Marina sat with her son inseparably in the ward. Denis visited them often, entertained the baby as best he could, and sometimes replaced Marina on weekends, giving her the opportunity to sleep and put herself in order. Together they did it, and Lisha was finally allowed to eat normal food, but in moderation. The boy's happiness knew no bounds. He recovered, gained strength, became stronger and returned to kindergarten, where they were already preparing the children for school with all their might. The relationship between Denis and Marina became increasingly vibrant. They could no longer imagine a day without each other and practically lived as one family. When Leisha completely recovered, Denis offered Marina a job. "Will you come to my company as a consultant? You have an incredibly developed intuition. Before an important business, your help and gift will be very useful to me. I promise a decent salary, and we will see you even more often. It's incredible. I feel so good with you, as if we had always lived like this." And I became so attached to Leszek that from the first day we somehow got along, as if he were my son. "Tell me, Marina, do you like me at least a little? Honestly, it's important for me to know the truth." The girl clung to him and kissed him tenderly. Denis even lost his breath with joy and excitement. Marina started ruffling her hair and whispering, "Nonsense. And you still ask?" "Yes. No man in all his life has done for me even 1/100th of what you have done. I don't just love you, I adore you, and Leszka adores you." After all, her own father was not happy about the pregnancy at all, and when Leszka was born, he didn't show her much love. I calmed down. I thought it was because my son was still a baby, and he was very sick. He slept poorly and suffered from stomach pains. But everything turned out to be much worse. My husband left him when he discovered his illness. He called his son inferior and me a defect. Like, what kind of woman am I? I could not give birth to a healthy child. It's that simple. He packed his things and left. He didn't want any difficulties and left us. I almost went crazy then. It all came to me at once. It was a betrayal. Everything died inside me. I thought I would never be able to love anyone again. But you are different. You managed to melt my heart, heal my son's wounds. You saved my son. I love you, honey, and I agree to become your faithful friend, life companion, wife, whatever you want." Denis was as happy as a student and decided, "Marinaka, be my wife. I promise to protect you and your child from any misfortune." You two gave me that same feeling of a real family, where children's laughter, common interests and concerns, where everyone cares about the other. Believe me, I have someone to compare with. Only now I realize that I was a fool and did not fully realize that Larissa loved only herself, but love must necessarily be mutual. When they informed Leszka about their decision, he was very happy. "Wow, now will you be my father? Amazing. And now we're all going to live together, right?" Denis picked up the baby and hugged him tightly. "Thank you, Leszka, for accepting me and my mother into the family. I will be happy to be your father, and you will be my son. Know that I will always support you and will not offend anyone. I invite everyone to live with me. There's a big house there, a yard, and you'll have somewhere to play. And the school is close. You go there in the 1st grade. And I will also introduce you to Grandma Valia and Grandpa Kolya. We will visit them. They have a huge dog, Baron. He is kind and faithful. He even knows how to lend a hand. You will definitely become his friend." The boy clapped his hands. "They are lucky. I would also dream of having a dog. I often even dream of walking the dog and feeding it. I watched all the Mukhtar episodes. The dog is also very smart. He looks for criminals. But my mother doesn't allow me to have a dog in the apartment." "And then we agree, right, Mom? Are we going to live with Dad?" Marina kissed her son and laughed. "Come on, my little sneak. I complained about my mother. I also love dogs, but the owner is against it. She will kick us out. Where will we go then?" So she didn't allow it. But in a private house this is possible. Once we settle in, we will definitely have a dog too. I promise. Denis and Marina got married and started living in the man's house. Marina quickly got the hang of it and started running the show with all her might. Denis did not get tired of it. She did not sleep like Larissa until lunchtime. She had no interest in spas at all, but she was spinning all day. delighting her household with delicious borscht and aromatic pies, putting things in order in the estate, and in a long-abandoned greenhouse was filled with fleshy peppers and tomatoes. On Leshka's birthday, Denis gave him a gift that the boy had dreamed of for a long time. Everyone gathered at a large table. The man invited Marina's mother and parents, and solemnly began to hand out gifts to the birthday boy. I had a bicycle, a soccer ball, and a new backpack. It was Denis's turn, who handed the birthday boy an impressive box with strange holes, tied with a red bow with the words, "Here, this is your son. Hope you like." A low groan was heard from the box. Alyosha even started crying. He guessed that there was a little dog there. He quickly began to open the package. He was in a hurry, and when he saw the charming black and white puppy, he immediately hugged him and began to cry bitterly from an overabundance of emotions. "Father, Daddy, thanks. You are the best. I will love it, and I will teach you commands." At that moment, everyone started crying. It was so moving. Denis began to speak. "Son, I took this baby from a shelter to our family. His previous owners threw him on the street and volunteers found him and gave him shelter. He needs a special approach to learn to trust people again. But, in my opinion, the puppy has already fallen in love with you. Look how calm he is." The little one began to fawn over the boy, wagging his short tail and licking his cheeks, and Lisha stroked his fur and said, "I'll call him Mukhtar, like in the movies, and I will work with him. Dad, shall we feed him? Can I give him a piece of meat? He's probably hungry, isn't he? Shall we build a house for him? I am the happiest today." Life continued normally. The Sokolov family lived in peace and harmony. Leshka was already in the 3rd grade. One day, Denis's mother fell ill and had to have a hernia removed, and the man and his wife went to see her in the surgical department. On one of those days, the couple witnessed a woman being carried on a stretcher, with her face covered in blood. She was unconscious. The patient was immediately taken to the operating room. There was no time for hesitation. The reception paramedic reported, "Larissa Koneva, 37 years old, multiple stab wounds, damaged liver, very serious condition. We thought we wouldn't even get there. She has only one young daughter at home. Nothing has yet been discovered about his relatives. You can see for yourself that she is unconscious. And the baby is also scared. He doesn't say anything. We've taken her with us for now, but apparently we'll have to take her to the reception center. I feel sorry for the girl. She is a bit wild, sloppy, and very oppressed." Denis, without even remembering, jumped to the doctors. "I know this woman. This is my ex-wife. Who is she like that? That is terrible. If necessary, the girl can stay with me until her mother gets better. I'll try to find out who the child's father is. Maybe he'll take the baby. Larissa Stepanovna Koneva has no other relatives, I'm sure." The paramedic shook her head. "Actually, this is not according to instructions and should not be, but since that is the case, so be it. Let the girl stay with you for now. Just leave your address and telephone number. If, God forbid, the woman does not survive, you will have to immediately take the girl to the shelter and register her as expected." Awake? Denis looked pleadingly at Marina. He didn't know how she would react to all this, but the woman patted him encouragingly on the shoulder and whispered, "Don't worry, I don't mind at all. This is a tragedy. We need help. The child is not to blame for anything. I can imagine how stressed she is, poor thing." Denis whispered in response, "Thank you, dear, for your understanding. I'm actually surprised. Larissa didn't like children before and never wanted them. As soon as she made up her mind, they brought a girl. She really looked bad. A haunted appearance, like that of a wolf cub, and tear-stained eyes, clothes clearly soiled for many weeks." Denis was even confused. "I didn't know what to say to her, how to find an approach. After all, they are completely strangers to her." But Marina reacted faster. "Hello, sunshine. What's your name? Say please." "I'm Marina. I also have a son, Lisha. To her surprise, the girl replied to the woman, my name is Masha, and my mother is going to die, right? I'm scared. I love my mother. And she began to cry passionately, rubbing the tears on her face. Marina sat on the trestle bed, took the child in her arms, and began to whisper to her, no, little one, Mommy will definitely get better. Uncle the doctor will cure her. You'll see. Meanwhile, Mom is sick. We would like you to stay with us. But if you don't want to, tell me, then your aunt will take you to a big kindergarten. The girl responded with fear. No, I don't want to go to kindergarten. Everyone there is bad. Won't you hit me? Denis was horrified, poor child, at what she had to go through in her 3 years. He replied, Masha, do not be afraid. No one will hurt you. On the contrary, Lisha will play with you and be friends. We have a dog, Mukhtarchik. He is so kind. So, are you coming to visit us? Denis left his contacts and business card at the hospital, and he and Marina took the baby home. They didn't talk about Larissa in front of her, so as not to traumatize the girl even more. They bathed the baby, changed his clothes, and began to feed him. She ate greedily, choked. It was clear that she was often malnourished and lived precariously. Lisha welcomed the guest, played football with her, and Masha fell asleep, having exhausted the day. Lisha also went to his room and asked to read some more. And the adults were finally able to talk in the kitchen. Denis was amazed. God, what happened to Larissa after the divorce? I was very angry with her because she wanted to ruin me, and because she betrayed me, and also tried to sue my property. In general, I wrote her out of my life, and I don't know where she went or how she lived. I thought I was with my lover, Sergey. You see, Masha is 3 years old, which means that Larissa gave birth to her after our divorce. What if it's my daughter? This thought haunts me, Marina. I feel very sorry for the child. It is clear that he was not loved at all and was poorly fed. But how could Larissa sink into such a life? She loved herself so much, but now she's completely sunk? You need to talk to the investigator and find out at least something. Marina shook her head. She also felt sorry for the girl, but decided to clarify everything in her own way. With the help of the gift, the woman took her husband by the hand and led him to the nursery. Masha slept nervously, often turning over and whimpering. Marina carefully held the little hand and concentrated. And again the flash. Images flashed before my eyes, like frames from a movie. Marina had difficulty breathing, carefully released the girl's hand, covered her with a blanket, and she and Denis returned silently to the kitchen. The man was eager to find out everything. Marina drank water, exhaled, and began to say, This is not your daughter. There is definitely no blood connection between you. But what I saw shocked me. A drunk made fun of Masha, called her an extra mouth and someone else's brat. Larissa was scared and didn't defend her daughter. She also drinks a lot. It was this man, apparently his partner, who attacked the woman. He had delirium tremens. How terrible this is. Masha sat under the table and cried. She was very scared. Poor child. Even if Larissa recovers, what awaits Masha? Again, the mother's roommates and their teasing and the precarious life? This is terrible, Denis. We have to protect her somehow. Denis spoke with the investigator. In fact, Larissa led a turbulent lifestyle and did not hesitate to bring her roommates with her daughter, drink, and have fun with them. Neighbors in the communal apartment confirmed. More than once they had to call the local police officer. The woman herself did not know who the child's father was, as she frequently changed her lover. Obviously, the woman didn't need her daughter. She just interfered with her fun. Denis was stunned, but could not bear it. He asked about Sergei Kopylov, Larissa's former lover and her careless employee. And then I discovered another news. So he was in prison for a long time, for fraud. While in prison, he contracted tuberculosis and died a few years ago. Denis shook his head and said, I want you to know that I don't care that Masha has a useless mother and no father. I want to adopt this unfortunate girl. My wife and I live affluently and are raising a son. The girl will be fine with us. I will give her care and affection. She will become a person," the investigator said. "A bold decision, but worthy of praise. Let's first wait for the girl's mother to come to her senses, and then we'll talk about it. If Caniva survives, the girl's fate will depend solely on her. In order for you to adopt her, Larissa must give up herself or be deprived of her maternal rights." But Larissa never regained consciousness, and a week later, she died in the intensive care unit. Apparently, this was revenge for the anguished mother for everything she had done. Denis organized the funeral and wake, not for the sake of Larissa herself. He had already erased her from his life, but for the sake of his daughter, so that she knows where her mother is buried and can go to her when she grows up. For a long time, they did not dare to tell the truth. They tried to surround Masha with love and affection. The baby gradually came to his senses and began to reach out to Denis and Marina. "I stopped writhing and crying at night." Lisha was a little jealous at first, but later she also accepted her named sister and fell in love with her. Acquaintances and friends did not understand Denis and turned to his temple, gossiping. "What an idiot this man is. His wife cheated on him, and he committed to raising his daughter well-fed. And why put so much weight on yourself? I would give it to a shelter and let the state take care of it, since the negligent mother couldn't." But Marina and Denis didn't listen to anyone. They became attached and fell in love with this little girl, and affectionately called her our little mouse. They were sure that they did the right thing by providing the girl with a happy childhood. After all, children are not responsible for the sins of their parents and should not suffer. Denis's parents also accepted their granddaughter. Although at first they dissuaded their son from adopting her, it seemed to them that a normal child could not be born from a snake like Larissa, but the quiet and intelligent Masha ended up melting their hearts. She felt drawn to her new parents, her brother, her grandparents, like a flower to the sun. She was no longer afraid of adults. She loved hugging and being caressed. Denis and Marina loved their two children equally. Their family was very friendly, the envy of everyone. They both believe that if you give your children care and affection and love them sincerely, they will certainly grow up to be good and worthy people. After all, the model of human behavior and way of life is established precisely from childhood. If the father loves the mother, then the son, when he gets married, will also become a good husband. The same happens with girls. If from childhood she grows up in love and affection, she herself will become a good wife and housewife. Marina liked working with children, studying a lot with them and reading. Denis also, whenever he had a free minute, tried to spend it with the children. Of course, they also had misunderstandings and the kids sometimes fought, but where would we be without that? But the reconciliation certainly took place at the large round kitchen table. Whoever offended asked for forgiveness, and everyone returned to living in harmony. And that significant day, October 7th, became the family holiday. It was the day that Denis and Marina met. From that moment on, their lives turned upside down and the two became a big, friendly family.